Good evening, morning, afternoon, evening, depends where you are. Trying to let people in as I'm talking. So thank you for joining us. Youth Soccer Coaches webinar hosted by me, Craig Scott. I'm pleased that we can have Chris Holt to discuss the development of futsal, which I'm sure that it will be an interesting topic of discussion for a lot of people. So we encourage questions through the chat. So it could be to the group or it could be to me. Whatever works for you. Please try and keep mics off to avoid background noise. There are going to be this webinar will be recorded and posted on a later date, so please keep an eye out for our channels for more information. Twitter at Youth Soccer Coaches and Facebook at Youth Soccer Coaches. Next week is Tuesday, not a Monday. It's going to be a Tuesday. It's going to throw some people off a little bit. Tuesday we have Ross Enzer, UEFA B for Wolves Academy, to discuss games-based approaches. I will now hand over to Chris to take you through his presentation.
Cheers, Craig. Thanks for joining, guys, and hopefully it's informative and you can take some stuff away tonight. So the outcomes we're going to look to achieve tonight, I want to just a bit of an introduction to myself and sort of my background that should help inform sort of where I'm coming from with the messages I'm going to deliver tonight. The Futsal B license, so what it entails. Just wanted to give a bit of a background so people who may not or may be looking at doing the Futsal B license, what it covers, why futsal, so what are the benefits and how it relates to 11v11 or compares to 11v11, and then my beliefs and why I do what I do. So sort of trying to justify things that I'm saying basically for tonight. So myself, so come with a background, 13 years coaching experience, coaching at academies such as Preston, Burnley and Accrington. Currently at UK Sports Coaching, and hold the UEFA A football and UEFA B futsal. Before we start the rest of the presentation, I want to make clear what I'm saying tonight. It's not right and it's not wrong. It's just my opinion from experiences that I've gained. So I don't want you going away thinking I'm preaching you must do this or you mustn't do that. It's just from my experiences and the angle I'm coming in at, what I've found in relation to futsal. So the B license futsal. So for anyone who's done the futsal level 2, the course sort of latches onto that really well, following on from a lot of the game sort of coaching. So rather than your real technical work, it builds on what you'll have done in your level 2s, whilst linking then to your individual player. So that's sort of what the course will achieve. From when I was quite fortunate that when I did the B license, it was the first one in the country. So we're talking of 2015 we got invited onto the course. So whether it's changed drastically from then to now, it may well have done. But in terms of the course itself, it does link heavily to the level 2, which I think is positive. And we'll speak more around sort of the games later in the presentation. So the structure, held at St George's Park, you attend once every month for 8 months, and take part in a load of practical and classroom learning, and then get assessed sort of back at your club within your own environment, which I think is a real positive. So whether that be with adults or foundation phase under 9 players, whatever it is, you'll get assessed within that. But a really good course that's spread along sort of 8 months, really, really enjoyable. And within that, it is split across everything you can imagine. It's probably one of the better courses I've done. So there's just a handful of things that I did when I was on my B license. So again, in-game topics, physical and psychological, in and out of possession, so systems of play. And I will mention on that, probably didn't include it around transition being mentioned quite a lot within the course. You sort of your goalkeeping, your refereeing. Now we had to do within the course, had tests on refereeing so that we knew the actual game itself, which I think is quite a good thing, and I think could be linked to football if the FA decided to do it with the football courses, so that you know the rules and you know why referees are giving things that they are. And then we also had things like analysis for following games, which I think were really good. So in terms of course, I think it's a whole round package for B licence and for futsal. I think it's really good and it progresses nicely from your level 1s and level 2s. So anyone who's thinking of doing it, I would recommend the course because I do think it's one of the better ones the FA put on. Obviously, unfortunately, now with the funding being cut, how it'll affect the courses, I'm not too sure, but certainly recommend having a look at that. Why futsal? What I'm trying to achieve with this is why am I such a big believer in futsal? And what I wanted to do with this, for those that may not know the game, just some comparisons between the futsal and football. So I've compared 11v11 to obviously your 5 versus 5 with futsal. Obviously you've got your game length in there, your times out, the ball, your subs, information there about your back passing, your fouls, obviously the referees. So a load of information whether you want to take a picture of that. Because I think it is important when people are going into futsal and just recognising it's not just going from 11v11 down to 5v5 football. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of differences there that make it sort of, it's sport in its own right. So I think it is important when we're showing people that, you are seeing the differences there to football, because I do think they're important. Then the stats. So this was taken from an average of 20 futsal fixtures versus 20 Premier League fixtures. Now, I totally understand both in class may be there with this, but in terms of a set of data, I think it's really interesting to see. So obviously straight away, the goals are up and your goal attempts are up. And if you have a look at the total attempts, absolute massive there. So if you're playing a game of futsal, you're getting a lot of goal mouth action, a lot of enjoyment there if you're working with your younger players. Attempts on target, you're getting more corners, less bookings, okay, and less fouls as well, which is quite interesting given it's a small area. So some differences that were identified. Obviously, more goals are scored in the average futsal game, with over twice as many, despite the games being shorter and the goals being smaller. So within your futsal games, you are getting, like I say, a whole host of chances. If you're coaching kids, they're going to absolutely love this sport. They're getting loads of opportunities to score goals, which they love. Many more are taken in futsal, with a similar ratio of these being on target as in 11 aside. Lower percentage slightly on shots on target resulting in goals. However, you are shooting in an extremely smaller goal compared to 11 aside football. Even though you are getting a lot of chances, okay, it is a lot harder to score as well. Fewer fouls are committed in futsal, which I think is quite an interesting stat that we found, given that it is obviously quite close contact. Although there was a high number of yellow and red cards in futsal, given there were fewer fouls overall. So from that, within futsal, I believe you've got great courses running. I believe it's a great sport in comparison to 11 aside. You're going to get loads out of it. So sort of my beliefs from it are, and this is a big one, and I'm going to try and keep that theme throughout the night if I can. Futsal, in my opinion, is a sport in its own right. I think we have it very much labelled in this country as a development tool. Does it need to be that? So I've made the comment there, football for futsal, not futsal for football. And what I mean by that is futsal used to help your football teams going indoor at winter just to play football? Why can't futsal be used to help your footballers go inside and play your futsal and benefit from that? So that's something I really want to think as, and I think it is used as a development tool a little bit too easily. We were speaking before, me and Craig, at previous clubs. I know at the minute the EPPP within academies use futsal, and I know a lot from personal experience it's very much just a tick box. We're not really going in and actually playing it as a sport in its own right. It's just there for football. Use the game. So when we're going in doing our sessions, are we actually using the futsal game as a basis of the session? Are we going in doing our football sessions where you'll be working on a whole host of things and then play a 5v5 futsal game the last part of the session? Can we not use the game as the basis of the full session, because you will get other outcomes that you may want to achieve while still playing your game of futsal. Don't be afraid to coach the unfashionable. I think within futsal, you won't be able to get out things that you may seem popular within football. Be brave to coach, in my opinion. There's a lot of out of possession, a lot of transition within the game of futsal. Be brave enough to coach that. I think a lot will go in and just coach in possession and expect all this nice combination play, 1 versus 1. Yes, it does come out, but don't be afraid to coach the unfashionable stuff. Might be, defending a little bit deeper, keeping yourself nice and compact. It will come out in the game of futsal as it does in football. So I think it's really important that you're not afraid to coach what's not classed as fashionable at the minute. Devil's in the detail, and I think futsal is a brilliant sport for improving us as coaches as well. I think it's, with it being such a fast, free-flowing sport, you've got to be looking at the minute details and change them quickly, being able to spot things that then affect the game. Because if you leave them too long in the game of futsal, there's every chance you're going to go concede 2, 3, 4. So we're looking at developing as coaches. I think coaching within the futsal game and will help you be able to see things and be able to see things quicker to then go and affect them. When you go back to your 11-a-side where things don't happen as fast, you're then going to be able to spot things an awful lot quicker as they're building up and how you impact things. So how's it applied? So again, from my own experiences, heavily foundation phase based. When we've done futsal at the clubs I've been at in the past, very much from your under 8s through to under 11s. Do I agree that it should be that? No, I don't. I believe that futsal's got a place for all age groups, depending on what outcomes you want to achieve. So what I mean by that is, under 9s, your foundation phase, under 10s, under 11s, yes, you're going to get probably a slower futsal game with a lot more room. So you can get your 1 versus 1s, 2 versus 2 combination play, which is brilliant. But then do we progress it on into your under 14s, under 15s when they're older, where you're going to get a completely different game of futsal? You're going to then get higher tempo, so your physical returns, your transitions are going to be really sharp. Your combination play's got to be extremely fast. Competitiveness. I mean, you put a futsal ball in between 2 under 15 teams, you are going to get some strong tackles in there, nothing's wrong, but you're going to get a really competitive game. So on the scale, do I think it should be heavy foundation phase? No, I think it should be spread both ways. So I think if you've got your older age groups, don't be afraid of going in and playing the game of futsal, because you're going to get a lot of returns, like I mentioned before, by playing the game. So again, was the game used enough during the week? No. Like I said, we were going in doing, we were using futsal for football, going inside doing football sessions with the futsal. Again, yeah, developing football players, but we're not doing futsal really. We're going inside doing football with a futsal ball. Can we use football for futsal? Can we get futsal actually coached through your football clubs? I'm sure many of you have your football teams when you're going in at winter. That might be the time where we stop football. No, we're doing the sport of futsal. So I'd say it wasn't used enough during the week. But as it progressed, obviously we're all learning as coaches. That's why, I've got this from my experience. So competition's brilliant. We were very fortunate, and that's one good thing with the academy setups is you will get a good games program. So we were very fortunate that we'd go and play futsal tournaments at the weekend. Really good, really well organised. You're playing other teams, like I said, younger age groups, really good. However, where the games used similar to training and was realistic coaching being achieved. So it's all right, we were going playing futsal games, but whether the same as training, where we're going just doing an extension of the weekly football topics for our training week, and was realistic coaching being achieved. So what I mean by that is this scenario. So goalkeeper saved the shot, is managing to catch the ball. So the opposition remain in a high press. The space is now in behind. Does the goalkeeper play into that space for his teammates who are unmarked, or does he roll the ball to his teammate who's immediately put under pressure? I know if I asked that question to when the last club I was at, and the majority of people would say, and what we watched, it would be rolled to the closest player. And again, it goes back to what's in fashion. You know, they're playing out from the back. You know, we want to play through the thirds, play this lovely football. Futsal, you're going to struggle. So again, I come back to the point: are they playing futsal, or are they using the futsal for your football sessions? So in my experience, what's actually happening on the court, I would ask my goalkeeper to play in the space every time because it's a realistic picture to what's going on. Because it's the game of futsal that's taking place. I'm not doing my football on the futsal court. I hope that makes sense to everyone. So from that, it's all well me and good saying I do X, Y, and Z, but how would I coach it? So this is one of my favourite practices within futsal, and that I do it with your football players as well. We spoke around, obviously, the goalkeeper catching it, so we're working a full court. Teams are split equally, standing to either side of the goal, making sure there's plenty of footballs or futsal balls, players to pass to the goalkeepers, start your quick attacks. Start 1 versus none. So whether your player scores or misses, it doesn't matter. Goalkeepers then quickly to deliver to your teammate, making it a 1 versus 1, and it constantly progresses. So building up 2v1, into 2v2, 3v2, 3v3, etc., until you've got your full 5v5 on the court. The team who scores when it's 5v5 wins. Now, within that, because your numbers are changing constantly, your picture is going to constantly change. So before I spoke about your goalkeeper throwing it in behind, that may not always be on within your session you're practicing because the scenario will then change. So because you're changing numbers, you're then able to work on different outcomes. So if your defensive team drops in, of course, you're asking your goalkeeper to roll it short and you're then looking to break and play that way. Again, like I said, just focusing on your goalkeeping distribution, different ways of attacking in relation to what the opposition are doing. Oh. 1, 1, 2, 4. So the task I want people to do, and I generally ask this quite a lot to people, is, and this within football as well, what you need to do is look at the futsal you're doing, if you are doing futsal, or if you're thinking about going into doing futsal as well, because I think that's important. Are you doing futsal or football indoors? I think, again, that's really crucial. We're not just getting our football teams at winter and just taking them indoors doing football and saying, oh, we're doing futsal. If you're going in doing 5 versus 5, that's fair enough. But if we're looking to do real futsal, are you actually doing that? When you do your sessions, does it relate to the game of futsal, or is it just football? So like I said, are you following those rules? Are you using the right futsal ball? Are situations like that coming up where in a game of futsal you're looking at goalkeeper distribution heavily? Or are you just going to go back to what's popular within football at the minute, playing to your centre-back, playing through? So like I said, do you coach the unpopular topics, themes, even though they may happen within your games? Are you missing them because they're not necessarily popular to coach? Hey guys, so I've gone quite through that quite quickly, so I'm happy to take any questions, and I appreciate you listening to my presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much. I do have some questions. I'll start off with some questions and hopefully give some time for other people to ask what they might have. I would also ask, if you don't mind, Chris, anyone on here that coaches football, futsal, coaches futsal or has used futsal, if you don't mind sharing your experiences, where you are, what country you're in, and what age group and what your experiences with futsal are in the chat, that'd be very good for us to sort of just see in the room who's sort of using futsal or has used it and what benefit it has for your players. Whilst guys start thinking about this, I will just go through questions. So first thing I had was sort of what returns do you think the players are getting from futsal? So younger players, and then maybe
younger players. So within your foundation phase, definitely your ball mastery. I think that's a huge part, and I think often that's why people will do it. I think obviously with the way the ball is, it's sticking to your feet a lot more. you've got to be able to receive. And I think it's really important because within futsal, you've got to be able to learn to receive both ways, so safe side and being able to turn. Obviously, lots of 1v1s within your foundation phase, your combination play, things like that. I think very much more in possession. Although, like I said, you can't have your returns out of possession because in futsal you're going to need it because the turnover happens a lot. Your transitions, your attacking and defending. But I think a lot with foundation phase is that ball mastery, sort of your 1v1 combination play, really.
We always say about as well, when we give exposure to these players in terms of more shots on goal, a better opportunity to maybe see a pass at a younger age group, when there's less players on the pitch or on the court, more changes of transitions or how to deal with recovery runs, for example. I think if we look at it and go, right, the best thing for these young players are for them to be exposed to these situations 20, 30 times more than they would in a normal game of football. So I kind of feel like we can use futsal to benefit players. But I think we had a discussion earlier about, I kind of wish as well, especially in England, there isn't a clear futsal path for players to go down, because I kind of feel like there's a lot of good futsal players that aren't good at football or soccer as much, but they're good at futsal. But their talent that's kind of being lost, maybe.
And there's a lot of good futsal clubs out there. I mean, there's a couple around sort of where I am, sort of Manchester and Bolton, which I know are very big futsal clubs, doing a lot of good work up to sort of open age adult teams. But like you say, unfortunately, and I know there's been a lot at the minute with the cuts at the FA, and obviously it's a shame, well, it's more than a shame that the national side's been cut. So there isn't necessarily that pathway, which is a real shame, because we were talking before, and players who would get released from academies, they're already in these futsal clubs, and it gives them that second opportunity where they do really enjoy the sport. But it is a shame that there isn't that culture in this country where the leagues and going on to national sides. It is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question was, how has futsal helped you grow and develop as a coach? So what have you really taken from futsal coaching into your coaching in terms of football, soccer?
Like I said, I think I mentioned before about sort of devil in the detail, because things are happening a lot quicker in futsal, so you've got to be able to spot things, the slightest of changes, quicker. Because if you don't and you leave things within competitive games of futsal, you're going to get hurt, and your game might get away from you then. That then impacting your football, I think, allows you, because obviously we're going from futsal to the 11-a-side game. You get that bit more time at 11-a-side. So if you're able to spot things that a lot quicker, you're then able to then go and impact things. So I think by coaching at the smaller numbers than such a fast game of futsal, and even foundation phase might not be as quick as when you're doing YDP, you're still going to have to see and spot things and those subtle changes, and it might be just a tweak of shape or whatever, a slight tactic, you might go on, a bit of a higher press, you might drop off, whatever it might be. Just by doing things that bit quicker, I think, because it's such a fast game.
For us as coaches, as you said, those things in futsal happen quickly. So even maybe you as a coach trying to make a decision so if you took a futsal game, I've done it before at college level, so I know that you kind of stand there and think, I've got to do something quickly because this game could be 6-7, game could be getting out of hand. Whereas football, as you say, generally you have more time to make a decision. But in futsal, psychologically as a coach, you have to make a quick decision. And as you say, then it gives you, in football, when you return, you actually realise that there's more time to make the decision. So
and I think
I haven't really thought about it before.
And looking away from the ball as well, I think, is a really key thing. In futsal, a lot will happen off the ball. People's movements, like say changes of shape. So being able to, you don't always have to coach things that are on the ball.
As well
that, again, relates to 11-a-side.
Your application of maybe So, for example, as I said before to you as well, the transition side of futsal means that in terms of a recovery run, you might be able to see what a good recovery run looks like in futsal better than you can in a football match.
Well, you can hide within football.
Yeah.
You can't within futsal, I always say, and
You're right.
yeah, it's almost like exaggerated football because it's such, the microscope's on you, you can't hide.
No.
You decide you're not going to make a recovery run or make a movement or not track somebody in futsal, killing your team. Well, you might be able to get away with it. The ball may never come your side. You've got 10 other players who dig out of a hole. In futsal, you haven't got that.
Hopefully the small pictures you kind of hopefully then see in a bigger picture when you take it to a game of football as well. So definitely beneficial. I think someone just asked the question, I think I might have seen it, but I'm going to ask it here. What advice would you give to football soccer coaches that want to get the best out of futsal coaching?
Concentrate on the game itself, whether that be in training or by playing other teams.
Yep.
I think you can get so much out of the game of futsal by actually doing it. Don't leave it till the last part of your session, half of the session. Just if you can focus on the game, you can build your coaching points through the game.
Yeah.
You're going to get so many returns because you're going to generally have an attacking side and a defending side. So you can work two topics. It's a say if your focus was on combination play.
Yeah.
The team you're not coaching is still going to get work defensively. They're still going to get that work on the transitions if they win the ball back. So then you're working on your defensive, like say, your recovery runs. So I'd say use the game as a base. Then obviously, if you're playing oppositions, it's then you as a coach, obviously your tactics, how you want to play. And then, like I say, devil in the detail when you're coaching from the sidelines within a futsal game. So I'd say just use the game as a base to everything you do.
Yeah. The scenario was a really interesting point that you make about everything being so we have to play out from the back. We have to play out from the back. But the point is that the pass that you said is on quite a lot in games of football and we don't see it. So maybe players might see those passes better by playing futsal.
And it's the bravery to do it as well. You're encouraging people because, I'll pick the team. I support Burnley. Burnley get hammered every week for playing to their strengths and what's actually on. Now, because they haven't got the players to play out from the back and that, they're not going to go and do it. Now, if that was a youth team or a under 12s team, because it's popular, I'm sure many coaches would, they try getting playing out from the back through your defenders and that. It isn't on to do so. So it's doing what's actually happening in front of you and being brave enough to do it, in my opinion, because I think we've got to a point where we want to do everything that's popular. Like I said, we were playing other academy sides at futsal and they're still doing the football syllabus. Now, is that futsal? And that's where the argument, I think, comes from. And we picked teams off. We were really successful at it.
Yeah.
Because it's all right if you're going to just, roll it to your will, come and press you. You're never looking to get in behind into the spaces.
True. I'm just going to read some of the comments here. So we've got one. Used to be futsal ref for 12 years in Italy. As a coach in the UK for Wildcats, I used futsal for ball mastery and creativity. Also, I made players switch for fun between futsal and football to challenge different cognitive skills. That's a good point. It's going to move down. Hi, Chris. I'm planning to do my level 1 futsal qualifications when courses are back and running. This summer, I'm taking on an under-8s group, which has 2 teams of 18 players in total. They all train at the same time. When I run a futsal session, what sort of format would you suggest? A 4-team round robin type system with first goal wins, or split the hall down the middle and play 5v5, 4v4 on a half pitch?
Yeah, split the court in half. If you can split if it's as long as obviously it's big enough, split the court in half. You might have 2 smaller pit courts, but everyone's going to be involved then, I think. And that decision making, I mean, just talking about the speed of thought through futsal as well. Like I say, you can't hide, and it's so fast. You've got to constantly be looking what's going on. You may not be on the ball, but you're still involved. So I think if you're going to do that and split the courts in half, you might have even smaller pitches, but the game then the tempo rises. Your probably quality will rise as well. So you should have some quite high intensity training sessions, which I think would be good.
Absolutely. Another one, never used futsal as a coach. However, I'm 44 and we used to play five-a-side regularly. What's the difference?
So a lot's within, obviously, first of all, the ball. I think five-a-sides generally sort of your big tennis ball, or sort of from what I remember using. So your futsal ball's quite a lot heavier, size 4 usually, so it's 30% less bounce, so it'll stick to your feet more. Obviously, the rules, if it goes off the court, 4 seconds when it's back on the line to play in, quite quick. Your back passes, you only get 1 back pass in your own half.
Yep.
And I think just generally the goalkeepers using the hands for distribution, can't kick it out. And they're probably the main ones, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think I've missed anything.
I think just it's better structure, isn't it? The structure is better in terms of futsal, because if you're going to play a 5v5 game, in my experience, there's never a really formation. There's never really a structure to the game.
No.
So maybe it just generally it's structured, right? You can play a 2-2, you can play a 1-2-1. There's just different ways of looking at playing futsal.
And that's what I mean by the unpopular stuff. I think you're going to have to, when you're doing your futsal, is work on those shapes, because you can't just run around like the chickens, and you can't like five-a-side smash it off the boards and do what you want. It is a really disciplined sport. And I don't, like I say, from my experience, it's never really been focused on, because people want to do the in-possession stuff. Well, no, you futsal, you've got to focus out of possession. You've got to get, whether you're a full court press, mid-court, or being really deep, like you say, whether you're in that 1-2-1 or 2-2 shape, whatever it might be, you've got to work on it and work on the out of possession stuff, because it is tactical and you've got to be switched on. So when we talk about quick decision making, it's that being able to read things. For these kids, if they're then going back out onto the grass playing whatever they're playing, 7, 9, 11 aside, it's really going to help them to actually see what's going on around them in the game of football. So that's probably where your link's going to come from.
Obviously, as well, the relationship between players, almost the mobility side of it. So, for example, if a defender overlaps a midfielder, for example, a 1-2-1, the defender runs under or overlaps them to receive a ball, you would expect the midfielder to drop in as a support mechanism. So 100%. That might be something that you want to do in a football game. But the mobility side of it and the way that players move on the pitch and cover and support each other, that happens a lot more, and you can see it in a futsal game. But in a football game, as you said, getting to 11v11, those things can be hidden by the sheer amount of players you have on the pitch. So that player not covering somebody might not be a big problem, but in futsal, if it doesn't happen, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing as well. I think
that coaches discipline, I think.
Yeah, and we try and look at like you say, the relationship from futsal to football. Sometimes I think you can fall into a trap a little bit between we're playing 2-2 to my 2 centre backs and my 2 central midfielders. Well, actually, in futsal, you're probably going to be 10 yards apart from each other max. On a football pitch, is 30, 40 yards. So I think sometimes you've got to be careful with that, because as much as you can see it as a 2 and a 2, and it is your 2 centre backs and 2 centre mids, realistically, your distances apart are so unrealistic if you're doing that within your football game. That's why I always say look at it as a sport on its own. Yes, you're going to get all your trade off and you're going to get loads out of it, but try not to go over using it as a development tool for your football, because realistically, you're not going to have the same pitches.
I'm going to try and get through these questions. Having only taken my level 1 futsal coaching, what is the best way to get further experience?
Coaching. Go and get involved with, if there are local sessions or teams, go and coach it. I think if that goes for any coaching badge or any football or futsal, you're only going to get better if you coach it. Like I say, I don't know what the FA are doing with the badges moving forward, so I couldn't say obviously go and do your level 2, because I don't know what they're doing with it. But I'd definitely say go and get hours out on the court and coach what you've learned in your level 1.
Oh, the same problem as well. As I said to you, my level 2 was cancelled, so I was a bit gutted. to be honest. Good evening. Fortunate to be on the same Futsal B license. You might know who he is. I coach futsal for a company with players from aged 8 up to adult, coach a university team. Being very fortunate to have been involved in England's RTC, plus previously coached Brentford FC Community squads for 4 years. Currently only coach football, or will do when we get back. So lots of experience there. I wish. Just seeing where the questions are at. Here we go.
Probably tell me I'm talking rubbish.
I'm an under-12s boys coach from California. Futsal is somewhat new to my team and would agree that most teams use futsal in the off-season as a tool. When it comes to formations for a young group who is still discovering the sport, is there a better option on formations to teach, such as diamond or upside down Y?
Depends on, I'd say, what players you've got within your group. I wouldn't say just go off a shape because it's what you prefer. I'd say go with what you've got. If you've got a player who is big and physical and can play as you pivot up high up the court, go and play with one. If you've got two, go play a 2-2. I think go off what you've got. I won't go with, oh, I prefer this shape, so I'm gonna. To be fair, I've fallen into that trap and just gone with shape. Oh, I like this one, so we'll play it. And then we've come up with against a team that's not right for and got absolutely hammered. So I'd go off with what players you've got to fit into a shape.